Hi there. Today's book in the Special Forces series is CQB, Close Quarter Battle, by Mike Curtis, a pseudonym. He came from a Welsh mining village and joined the parachute regiment, 2 Para. Describes a lot of the training, P Company, and so on. And the highlight of his time in the Paras was the Falklands. And there's quite a bit about the paras in action there, the landings and so on. And he tragically loses his best friend, his mate, uh, uh, to gunfire there. While in the Falklands, they come across a group of guys from the SAS and what he describes as a band of gypsies. And one of the NCOs says to Mike, um, their SAS, he said, I tried selection, he said, and I failed. And this guy was a very impressive NCO. He's a guy everyone looked up to. And the sort of thing, well, if he fails SAS selection, what chance have the rest of us got? But eventually, Mike Curtis decides to give it a go. And in August 1985, goes down to Hereford. Um, Running training wing at the time was a former para officer, John Crossland, who he knew well, uh, another Falklands vet, and he goes through and describes in detail what it's like. The other guys on the course, a few of them are paras and so on, mates of his. Um, and it comes to endurance, and he finishes second, just behind a para officer who had been shot and wounded in the Falklands. Very impressive recovery. To go to the jungle, he describes the very, very arduous jungle training. Gets through that, comes back, and is going through combat survival. And then the interrogation phase, he loses his temper. They manage to push his buttons, which is one of the objects of the exercise. He reacts and he is taken off the course. And they advise him not to come back straight away, but to have time to recover and come back the following summer selection, 86, where he finds out he has to start from day one. But they kind of give him a little bit of a leadership role, helping the other guys and so on. And he goes through jungle combat survival again and passes. And he goes to D Squadron 19 Troop, which is the mountain troop, and then starts learning the ropes, literally. Goes to Norway, does a skiing course, does ice climbing on frozen waterfalls in Norway and so on, and learning all you need to the troop skills you need in the mountain troop. Next is the counter-terrorist team, where the new guys start as snipers, but then he spends some time as an assaulter as well. And then he's given a DEMS course, demolitions, where he learns all about explosives as his individual skill. Then in 1988, the squadron goes over to the United States to work with Delta on what's called Deltex, which is an annual event which alternates between the United States and Europe with the SAS and Delta. And it's a scenario where there's a hijacked nuclear device, and also the vice president has been taken prisoner. So it's a hostage rescue and a loose nukes scenario. So they successfully do that, but then during the extraction phase, they're hit with a surprise E&E scenario. The helicopter lands, they're booted out into the swamps, and you've got to get to the RV in a set time. through this terrible humid swamp, and they managed to do it. So after that, Northern Ireland training, a long build-up, all the surveillance work and so on, and shortly after that, the Kuwait kicks off, and the invasion of Kuwait, first Gulf War, and A and D squadron are sent out, and they operate in half squadron groups in mobility operations using the 110, mainly the 110 rovers, some motorcycles, and some larger trucks as well. So basically, four columns uh, operated in Iraq, and they do a build-up training. The guys from Mobility Troop obviously lead the training, show them the ropes with the SOPs on the vehicles and so on, and off they go, causing mayhem in Saddam Hussein's backyard. Very exciting, calling in airstrikes and all sorts of things, and ambushing various Iraqi units. Uh, Freezing cold, as in Bravo 20, the head shed have completely misread the weather, disregarded the fact that the desert gets cold at night and particularly in the winter. And as I said before, the pictures of David Sterling's men, the original SAS, wearing duffel coats would have been a major clue. So they actually do get a supply of heavy coats sent to them, which is a godsend, particularly operating on vehicles with the wind chill. So it's a real inside look at how the SAS operated in that role. Then they come back, and then short time later, Bosnia kicks off. We've got a war in Europe, and one of the things that Mike Curtis does is put in charge of a small bodyguard team to protect John Major, the Prime Minister, when he comes over to meet Mike Rose, who the former SAS colonel who was in charge in Bosnia. So he does that bodyguard task. Not too long after, he's RTU'd after a fight and decides to leave the army and goes on the circuit as a bodyguard. So it's a real inside look, very well written, a lot of humour in there, a lot of squaddy language. He's a real character and had a really a career that spanned quite a bit of the active time in the SAS, and it's a really good read.